Did you see all the hiccups I had in the beginning with the intro and stuff? So I was doing studio mode and I tried to do a new thing with the Batgirl thing. And I was like, okay. And then it doesn't play the video. And then I was freaking out. I was like, what is going on here? And then everything. Yeah, I know. I got to practice in studio mode more, you know. So let me see. Everybody in the chat, what's going on, guys? We got Peter, gonna go for it, who made my intros, by the way. Super valuable to creators out there on the YouTubes. Currently producing R and Ross show. Congrats, Peter. That is awesome. So happy and excited for you. Hello, Jove. What's going on? Never Again's with us. How you doing? Remember Sammy Jenkins? What's up? Ox PMA. How you doing? Bernhard Uranus. You like the tunes. I like dancing too. I like the music. It's great. So what kind of scientist am I? Analytical chemist. That's what my master's is in. And I worked in breast cancer research for a little while and got a publication on a breast cancer test I helped engineer, which was cool. Never Again, you should always listen. You should always hang out and do the science with us. It's great. Is it Natalia or is it oh, God, I'm going to say your name wrong, and I'm really sorry. Can I call you, I don't want to say, can I call you Natalie or Nat, but Natalia, is that it? I hope I said that right. Hey, Bill Thompson on Facebook. What's up? Dynacat Loves Me. How you doing? Nether, what's up? How you doing, man? Yes, so I'm a nice human and talented too. I try to be, but man, you know, I'm from the South, and sometimes, you know, and I got a bit of Irish in me. I guess everybody in the U.S. has a bit of Irish, but I actually do. I've traced my roots, so I get really kind of angry over certain things. And it's been very difficult to maintain my cool, given some manipulation stuff that's been going on in the U.S. Critical Cripple, what's up? Up is the direction away from the center of gravity. That's fair, Nether. That's fair. Oh my goodness. So guess what, guys? I got a treat for you before I get started. Guess what? I got a new doggy cam. There's Nina the science doggo. Hey, Nina. Can you say hi? She's like, I'm napping right now. She's my supervisor. Look how small she is. That's how little she is. Hey, Neen. What's going on? So I got the science doggo cam from time to time. We can check on Neen and see what she's doing. Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. That's how you say your name. So there we go. Nina the science doggo. My producer. Not my producer, my supervisor. She'd probably do a better job producing than I would, actually. So there you go. I have no idea what you are going on about, Mel. LMFAO. We're grits. Well, you can kiss my grits is what you can do. Y'all ever watch that show where the one goes, you can kiss my grits? I forget which show that was on, but that was a thing. Science Doggo is master of chill, Jove. Thank you, Black Diamond. She's adorable. She looks like a Pokemon, you know? She's so little. So that's cool. Yeah. She looks like a cat without seeing her face. Yeah, I mean, hey, Neen, can you show your face? Show your face a little bit? She's like, I am napping, woman. What do you want? You know, but she will sit here and demand cuddles and that I hold her from time to time. Flo, when pigs fly. That's right. Mel's Diner. You got it. Kiss my grits. That's right. Oh, my goodness. Y'all know what grits is, right? It's like hominy. It's all ground up. It's really good with shrimp and cheese. There's like no vegetables in that at all. Just lots of fat and protein and carbs. The shrimp and grits, guys, for real. So guess what we're talking about today? This is what we be talking about today. Yeah, reared in the South, and we're never allowed to forget it, even if we never fit in. Snikers, that's me. Yeah, I have Biden-Harris signs in my foyer. They never put in my yard because I'm afraid of the people on my street. People are like, how is it this close that the election? So we're going to talk a little bit about manipulation with that today. And there's lots of different things that are involved in manipulation and how somebody can manipulate you to get you to do what they want you to do. Vote for them, you know, fear, you know, there's all kinds of different things that and I'm going to talk a bit about that. But yeah, so I'm manipulated in a way that I won't put Biden-Harris signs in my yard, even though I bought them, even though I gave money. I did give money to their campaign. And I'm like, I should put these signs out there in case there's other people like me. So solidarity, you know, be like me, join me in this, you know, not vote for Trump thing, but my state, popular vote, frickin' Trump. And given how most of the people on my street are packing heat and flying their Confederate flags and their Trump flags, and seeing how these individuals will run, you know, people off the road with their flag trucks, you know, covered in Trump flags and stickers. I feel like it's not in my best interest to put Biden-Harris signs in my yard. So I'm being manipulated to not do that, you know, from fear of them burning down my house. And to be quite honest, the KKK was listed as a local, you know, community thing on the website of the town, I think until about 2000 as a local organization. And then they were taken down, you know, when the population here started to get more diverse. So 20 years ago, the KKK was listed as a local organization on their little business page on the town site. So yeah, I can't really put a sign in my yard for fear that, you know, 20 years, the KKK doesn't magically go away because they're not on the site anymore, you know, so... You know what I mean? So yeah, we're going to talk a bit about that. It's cornmeal, says Ox PMA for grits. Hey, harmonica man. What you doing? What's going on? It should not have been this close, not after 4 years of open corruption and incompetence. Yes, but the thing is, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter when you have an embedded racism problem in the U.S. And so I'm going to talk a bit about how using people's very strong cognitive biases, doesn't matter how awful or evil you are, people will do things for you if you say the words they like to hear. That is a much stronger motivation than seeing change. So we're going to talk about those things here in a bit. Someone put a Trump sign in my yard a few weeks ago. Fixed it with lighter fluid and a Bic lighter. Ugh, gosh, man. I don't even think I could burn a sign like that in my front yard. If I took a Trump sign and burned it, even that act would elicit negative behavior in this area. Man. So, wow about the KKK, right, Jeff? People pretend like, oh, well, nobody talks like that anymore. Really? Let me tell you a little story about a high school I used to work at. About 2015. 2014, 2015. There was a teacher, a science teacher there, standing in the hallway. Here, let me just take a moment. Let me just take a moment with you. Walk down this path with me. There was a science teacher. And, you know, we were all in the same hall. I was teaching biology at the time. And I'm standing out there, you know, I'm talking to my colleagues, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I was still kind of new at the school. And this teacher, this male teacher, probably 6'6", massive white guy, huge stomach, big round, always had John Wayne fantasies all the time. He was like, I hope Tennessee lets me do this, or I hope Mississippi lets me do this. I would go down to all these other states in Georgia, and he would start running his mouth about all of the different southern states and things that he would do. So he was all for, all of the different states in the U.S. To come together and allow teachers to bring guns to the classroom, because he had these fantasies that he was going to take out school shooters with his guns. Okay, so not only that, but when I'm standing in the hallway and he's like talking about this, he also brings up about our city, our nearby city, and he goes, you know what? There's a lot of black on black crime there. And this is what he says in a hallway of a diverse school with all kinds of different people there from all backgrounds, different races, black, white, brown, doesn't matter. Walk into class, in between classes, and he goes, if they just let me take my gun down into the city, I would handle their black on black problem for them. He says this out loud in the hallway. Yes, I reported him because I thought, oh my God, what if one of my students hears this and thinks that I'm this person that agrees with him? After that day, I stopped talking to my colleagues. None of my colleagues spoke up. I don't know if they reported him either, but guess what? He still has a job. He advocated for the murder of black people, and he still has a job. So yeah, I can only imagine where he's at now. And he's probably a huge Trump supporter. He's probably one of those people that would show up to a protest, pretend to get attacked by somebody and shoot him. I wouldn't put that past him, because he spoke about his little John Wayne fantasies all the time, treating this like there's the Wild West. So yeah, people don't care if Trump is corrupted. They want a space to be able to be horrible to other people. And our racism is so embedded in this country that, even racist white people will blame black people for the racism. And they'll be like, well, this is your fault. Look at how awful you're behaving. Look at how awful this is. If y'all would just stop acting like this, if you would just stay home. And so they blame black people for all of the societal unrest. So they feel justified in going out there with guns and shooting up the black people because it's their problem. This is what, they started all this. We were fine until they started speaking up about all of this stuff that they think is real and it's not. We're responding to this. No. So I'm not surprised that it's this close because of the corruption and the incompetence. That doesn't matter. The racism problem is the biggest thing. The racist motivation is the biggest thing, because white people who are racist know they have an advantage, and that advantage is always going to be better than the opportunities black people have. White women will vote for a sexual assailant, a person who would say, yeah, I'd totally assault a woman. I don't care. But they would vote for a person like that because at least they're not black. I mean, let's be frank here. Black women are treated horribly, and white women will actively support somebody who would oppress them for an opportunity to have it a little bit better than other women. We see this all the time. Women will throw other women under the bus so they can get a bit further, and they will work and use that system to help benefit them, because if they're the Mrs. Waterford, then they won't have to be a handmaiden. They won't have to be one of those women. So they understand privilege. They just won't say it, but this is what this is, guised in, they've had this coming. So when we're talking about manipulation and we're getting into a bit of this, how can you get people to do what you want them to do, to vote for you and do stuff like that? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some experiments that are done. I've covered these experiments before, but let's paint this a bit more in the current circumstances. And I'm going to talk a little bit about personal experiences too. So let me catch up on the chat really quickly. That is how fascism fabricates consent, by silencing dissent. Yes, that's true. That says Nether. That was from Nether. Never Again says, I've slept very well. I'm impressed Biden is in the lead, but I'm not losing sleep over it. Nestlig says, there actually was one person threatening to sue their neighbors because of a Biden sign in their front yard. I believe that. You're oppressing my free speech, and you're upsetting me with your, okay, guys, I'm just going to say this to you. My neighbor who has a giant Trump flag and Confederate flag, he's a volunteer firefighter. Okay. He didn't like how tall my grass was because it had gotten a little bit tall, and I have allergies and I live on almost 2 acres. So it takes a bit of time to cut it and stuff. So he went to my mom, who lives across the street, and complained about my grass. He went to my stepdad, because he didn't even tell my mom. He told my stepdad, because he has to talk to a man to say they need to cut their grass. Side thing, he cuts grass on the side. That's like his job, is to cut grass. They need to cut their grass. So, but he didn't pay for the fence that I put up. He didn't even pay in half of that, but he's going to complain about my grass. He said, there was a water moccasin. There was a snake in my kitchen. There's a lake not too far from here. And a snake, a water moccasin, didn't come from my yard. Come on, man. Come on. So we're talking about people who will place blame on cutting grass and the fact that they leave their door wide open and let snakes coming into their house. But that's my fault somehow. There you go. So yeah, I believe that. Long time no chat. Another to Nestlig. As long as hate thrives, the triple K will be a thing. That's true. Ox PMA. Let me see. I'm catching up. Look up the speech of Mark Antony the Fifth. I think it was Mark Antony versus Brutus. The argument changed the minds of the public. Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting how words matter. Here in the Netherlands, we have among the strictest public weapon restrictions. It's even illegal to carry pepper spray, which I don't agree with, but still, Nestlig. Yeah, I'm familiar with your gun laws. I actually am. It's pretty rough. Hey, RB, what's going on? Let's see. Greed is a motivator. It's just nuts. Hey, Titan, what's going on? Let me check up. I'm trying to check up on the chat. I need coffee now. Never again. Yes, coffee is important. Oh, my goodness. All right, so let's get into a little bit of what I want to talk about today. We're going to talk about manipulation. What is it? How does it work? Where do we see it? How do we combat it? So I've already talked a little bit about what in the heck? Oh, this is a thing here. Sorry. I already talked a little bit about kind of examples of what we're seeing with manipulation currently. But we'll get into a bit more of it. These are essentially the topics I'm going to hit. The different experiments that we know of, ways that people can be manipulated to do things. Even the most horrible acts of violence can come from manipulative tactics. If somebody is allowed to pass the buck of responsibility, if they don't have to accept responsibility or blame for their actions, they'll do a lot of awful things. Looking at you, Donald Trump, and inciting white supremacists on having a free-for-all. They've been given permission to behave this way. We're going to talk about manipulative people in general, examples of manipulation, which we've kind of already been talking about. I don't have a stutter, but I suppose I need more coffee. Examples of manipulation. We're going to talk about all of the different cognitive biases and how that's used to get you to do what somebody wants you to do. And we're also going to talk about manipulation tactics. All right. So this is where we're at. So I'm going to briefly kind of talk about these two. We're dealing with this is well documented, and there's several different variations of the Milgram experiment that have happened. We've not had another example of the Stanford prison experiment because of how unethical it was. Oh, did CNN call it? CNN call the election? Maybe we should take a moment on that. I don't know. I don't see it yet. I don't see anything about CNN calling the election yet. Not yet. Ah, well, it's okay. I was getting excited for a second. Hey, Greyheart Labs, what's up? I don't see anything in the news yet. I mean, I know we should call the election the way that, we're just waiting on Nevada. Nevada's counting ballots like so freaking slow right now. I feel like, yeah, calling it doesn't make it so. You're right. It's gonna have to, but that's okay. So kind of jumping back to this. Yeah, predictions are just guesses until the count is done. That's true. And given that this is such an important election, we need all the votes counted. So there is no question. Their site has Biden at 271. Okay, well, thanks for the heads up, Black Diamond, on that. Mel, I think the Stanford prison experiment was debunked. Who debunked the Stanford prison experiment? I don't know that it was debunked. Why was it debunked? Let me see. I'm checking this out. I still use it as a good example. Let's see. All right, so this is what I found on the APA. Let's check this out. Let's see what they say. The Stanford prison experiment is one of psychology's most famous studies. It has been criticized on many grounds, and yet a majority of textbook authors have ignored these criticisms in their discussions of the SPE, thereby misleading both students and the general public about the study's questionable scientific validity. Data collected from a thorough investigation of the SPE archives and interviews with 15 of the participants in the experiment further question the study's scientific merit. These data are not only supportive of previous criticisms of SPE, such as the presence of demand characteristics, but provide new criticisms of the SPE based on heretofore unknown information. These new criticisms include the biased and incomplete collection of data, the extent to which the SPE drew on a prison experiment devised and conducted by students in one of Zimbardo's classes 3 months earlier, the fact that guards received precise instructions regarding the treatment of the prisoners, the fact that the guards were not told they were subjects, and the fact that the participants were almost never completely immersed by the situation. Possible explanations of the inaccurate textbook portrayal and general misperceptions of the SPE scientific validity over the past 5 decades, in spite of its flaws and shortcomings, are discussed. So I think that doesn't necessarily debunk it, but I think it's important to note that, the Stanford prison experiment was one of the reasons why they came up with rules on how to conduct an experiment with participants. So I think it goes a little bit hand in hand, particularly with the Milgram experiment, in the fact that when you have a place, when you have a construct, and you have appropriate attire, and you're able to pass the buck of responsibility, you will behave in a certain way. And I feel like the Stanford prison experiment kind of reinforces that. And yes, the fact that the students, they were students of Zimbardo's, and they had to call it off a lot sooner than they wanted to because of how horrible people were treating each other. So it could be argued that, there's a lesson to be learned here. There's a lesson to be learned here about manipulation. So that's why I'm bringing up the Stanford prison experiment. There was a really good movie about it on the Independent Film Channel. But thank you for bringing that up, Jeff. Purple rhymes with orange. What's up? Associate Press is showing PA to Biden, giving him 284 electoral votes. Okay. The Associated Press has called the race. Well, let me see. Let's have a look at that. 2020 election results. Here we go. Yep. The Associated Press has called the race. Look at that, guys. At 10:32 a.m. is when I have the updated for this. Ha! You realize there's going to be recounts. Also, Georgia isn't totally called. Well, wait. Yeah, Georgia isn't totally called yet. Nevada, come on, man. You've only counted 632,000 votes. Well, oh, wait, no. A million, sorry. A total of 1.3 million, it looks like, approximately. Okay. But still, 1.3 million votes over several days, Nevada. Come on. So, it looks like Arizona, Georgia. I'm proud of you, Georgia. You're getting there. We're getting there. That nice little bit of blue in the middle of the South. This isn't a very good representation. If you go back through, I talked a little bit about this on Black Sophist channel. There's a little blue streak that goes through the South. It's a little bit of a blue, but the Electoral College is inherently flawed in that state elections, all of those votes in a state election, I mean, they don't really count. It's the electoral votes. Who won the most votes in that state? And then that state gets to vote for the president rather than the entire thing. But, I mean, still, 74,840,834 votes for Biden so far from what we see. Look at that. So there you go. There you go, guys. Associated Press has called it. Now let's wait for the giant temper tantrum and all of the court battles that are going to happen over the next few months. Hopefully, honestly, I'm kind of hoping that there are court battles a little bit, because then that won't give him time to destroy the country in the next few months. But either way, keep in mind, if this isn't resolved by January, Nancy Pelosi becomes president. But I'm pretty certain at the end of December, the electorate will vote according to the Electoral College. We might have something called Hamilton electors, which we had last election, that did not vote for Trump. They put their vote elsewhere. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that. But congratulations, President-elect Biden, if this is indeed the case. The press has not always been correct. I think they've had a few where they've been off a little bit, but there's going to be recounts, particularly, let's see, in Pennsylvania. There'll probably be a recount. Let's see. It's about 0.5% in Pennsylvania. So a difference. There might be a recount there. There's certainly going to be a recount in Georgia. Well, yeah, let's see there. Yep, there'll be a recount in Georgia. Not likely in Nevada. But even if, those don't go his way, he still gets 270 just from he'll get the extra 6 votes from Nevada. As slow as they are. I saw something. It's pretty funny. Come on, Nevada, man. Y'all got all that money and you can't knock out this voting here. Okay. Alrighty. Cool. The longer we delay calling the election, the less time Donald Trump has to sabotage our country in his lame duck session. That's true, Carl, on Facebook. Oh, my goodness. Oh, goodness. I'm catching up. I'm having a Biden wins party, but due to COVID, nobody is invited, says OXPMA. Oh, goodness. It looks like Joe Biden won the election. So let's have a little bit of doggy cam here. Guess what, Nina? Joe Biden won the election. Aren't you excited? Are you shaking? Can you say hi? Say hello. She's so little. She's so little. Nina, the science doggo. You stretch. There you go. It's all right, Neen. There you go. Okay, see, now she's wanting cuddles. It's all right, Neen. Sit down. It's okay. It's okay. Nina, the science dog, everyone. She's my supervisor. She sleeps a lot on the job. I should complain to HR. Almost every major news net has called victory to Biden. Well, yes. I mean, the Associated Press collects from all of those news networks as well. There will be many court cases before this is final. Yes. Well, they can call the election. And there will be recounts, but it's going to be hard to contest because of the fact that each state has their own individual rules and stuff. So it'll be like, oh my goodness. Political crap is over. Not quite, but I think it's at least moving in the right direction. So, oh my goodness. Alrighty. So I guess we can move on. Thank you. Yep. Nina tells me I need to be pet right now. And now she's back to her normal state. Just curled up right there. All right. So here we are again. It looks like my little stuff that goes in the middle. Oh, there it is. My pictures are showing up now. Oh, goodness. Nather says Nevada is delaying so the bookies can get liquidity going before they have to pay out. That's true. Oh, my goodness. All right. So the Milgram Experiment, and the reason why I bring these up is because of the fact we do have various types of experiments that can show the perception of authority and the ability to place blame on somebody else for your behavior is a driving factor on how people can motivate you and manipulate you into getting you to do things, horrible things, even illegal things sometimes. So, cute puppy. Thank you, OXPMA. So when we're talking about manipulation, passing the buck of responsibility is extremely important in the perception of why it is people do horrible things. And the Milgram experiment was really, it came about from, let's see. So the Milgram experiment came about from, let me get my thing out, from the different trials that were going on about World War II. You know, the thing where people say that the Holocaust didn't happen? Well, we had a whole bunch of trials happen because of these war crimes and these crimes against humanity that the Nazis were doing. Sorry, my ear itched. And so Milgram in 1963, he wanted to investigate justification for the genocide performed by the millions of Germans during World War II. Millions of people were involved in this. You know, this was sparked by the Adolf Eichmann war criminal. So at his trial in 1961, and his defense was, I was just following orders. And we see that a lot. I'm just doing my job. I'm just following orders. I'm just doing this. I'm just doing that. So people, you know, and sometimes you are just doing your job. But when it comes to causing, you know, killing people and permanently disabling people, maiming people, causing emotional damage, you know, passing the buck of responsibility is pretty important. And so Milgram wanted to answer the question, okay, could it be that Eichmann and his million some odd accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? And could we call them all accomplices? Were they just following orders? They're like, oh, I was just told to do this, so I did it. And also, you know, it brought a reality, particularly to Americans. They're like, well, Germans are just evil. You know, they're just evil. They're just evil. They're just in this evil culture. So stateside, he wanted to also, you know, investigate, well, if Germans, are they particularly more obedient to authority figures? Or can everyone be involved in this sort of thing? Is it exclusive to just a culture? Or can this affect anyone? So he designed this experiment to see just how far just ordinary people would go if they had the knowledge that they were doing and could potentially harm and possibly kill another human. And so what he did is he placed an ad in the newspaper where subjects were given $4.50 just for showing up. The group was 40 males, and they were aged between 20 and 50 years old, and they had all kinds of different jobs. So it was a diverse group of people. Let me catch up on the chat a little bit. It's company policy. That's right. Insurance. You look at insurance people. You know, they sit there, I'm sorry, we have to reject. You know, they have policies where they just reject claims outright. And you have to keep pushing and forcing them. You know, it's just company policy. But, you know, they can pass the buck on their my supervisor told me to reject every claim that comes out first. You know? So there you go. Let me catch up. Okay, I think I've caught up on most of this stuff. Dinah Cat loves. He says, Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, judge, here's your evidence of fraud. A video of a guy wearing a barbecue beer and freedom shirt claiming fraud. And then there's like another video of a guy going around. I think it's Jeff somebody or other. I mean, he apparently has been in trouble before. Said that, oh, this post office worker heard somebody saying that they were gonna, like, you know, shift the dates on the ballots and count them. That's not evidence, you know, but hey, whatever. It's a way to manipulate the public, you know. So just a real quick rundown of the Milgram experiment. You had your fake test subject, and you had your teacher. So you had your learner, you had your teacher, and how they came about with their particular experiment and who was the learner and who the teacher. They did a drawing of straws. Now, the fake test subject was always an actor. They always got the correct straw. And the subject, the teacher, that was the person who was being, was the test subject, essentially, to see how far they would go. And then you had your experimenter, who was in a white coat and would go through the process of saying, okay, well, anytime that the teacher, and so what happened was the teacher had to ask a question, and if the fake test subject got it wrong, they had to administer electrical shock. And it goes from very painful to even lethal. And it was noted on the dials that this is a potentially lethal, shock. And they knew that this could be a possibility. But again, they weren't actually hurting anyone in the other room, but it was still something that, they wanted to test. How far would they go? And so anytime the teacher resisted, was like, I don't feel right about this, I don't think I should do this, the first prod from the experimenter would be like, well, please continue. And then if they pushed back a second time, then the experimenter would say, the experiment requires you to continue. And then the third time, if they pushed back, I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I think this is a problem. Can somebody check on the person in the other room? I'm concerned about them. They would say, it is absolutely essential that you continue. And then the last prod would be, you have no other choice but to continue. And so this particular experiment was pushing the teacher to go on and continue the experiment, regardless of any consequences for the fake test subject. You can find, I've played this before, wrong thing. You can find this video, the Milgram Experiment. It's widely documented on YouTube, and have a look at it. And they do get into a bit more detail, but I'm not going to show that here right now. But it's there if you want to have a look. Let me catch up on the chat. I see you, Harmonica Man, in your social experiment. Oh my goodness. Shuts mouth and lets mouth tell. And sips coffee. I know this one. Yes. I know this experiment. Isn't it great when you know that? So what were the results? 65%, 2/3 of participants, the teachers, continued to the highest level of 450 volts. All the participants continued to 300 volts. Now, Milgram did more than one experiment. This wasn't the only one he did. He carried out 18 variations of his study, and he found out that ordinary people are likely to follow orders given by an authority figure, even to the extent of killing an innocent human being. Obedience to authority is ingrained in us from all the way since we are brought up. Now, people tend to obey orders from other people if they recognize their authority as morally right and or legally based. This response to legitimate authority is learned in a variety of situations. For example, we have it in the family. You're supposed to listen to your mom and dad and do what they say. You have it in school. You listen to your teachers and you listen to the principal. We have it in the workplace. We're supposed to follow what our bosses tell us to do. So we already have this ingrained in us to do what we're told. And so this kind of leads to a bit of what we call agency theory, where you have autonomous, where people direct their own actions, and agentic, where people allow others to direct them. And so people will allow you to direct them if they see you as an authority figure, 1, and 2, they need to not have any responsibility for their behavior. Looking at you, Trump supporters. You see an authority figure telling white supremacists, stand back and stand by. They're going to read that and say, we just got permission from the president for the Proud Boys, a white supremacist organization, to get ready because they're going to be doing favors for the president. And so the president, who is in the highest office in the country, is telling white supremacists words like that They're like, oh, he's brilliant. He's given us code. He's telling us, he's allowing us permission to act this way. And then we get people like Kyle Rittenhouse and his mother, who drove him across state lines because he said he was protecting property in a state where he didn't even know who the property owners were. But he had expressed permission from the highest office in the country to be able to do that. And so what else happens? He gets painted as a hero for going over there and shooting unarmed people because they questioned him. And so, you know, it goes from the state of privilege. If people are allowed to pass responsibility and say, well, the president said these things, therefore that makes it okay. They know that they're not supposed to kill people, but they might get to pass the buck of responsibility and not be held accountable for their actions. Therefore, boom. Agentic. People allow others to direct them. And autonomous. People direct their own actions. So the Kyle Rittenhouses out there, you're still responsible for killing people. You're still responsible for murdering people. But in their minds, it's justified because they have the perception of permission to do this sort of thing from the highest office. A person who's an authority figure saying, hey, it's okay. I'm racist too. Go out and do, because I would. You see how strong and manly and masculine I am? I totally would. I could go out in the middle of, Wall Street and shoot somebody in the head and get away with it. I mean, this is a man who says these things. And he gets away with a lot of stuff because he is a person in a place of power and has money and has all of this stuff to connect. So he can get people to do terrible things. First of all, they have to be receptive to it. They have to see a person in a position. Now, ordinary people who aren't necessarily racist, who may not have never been racist, well, I'm not going to say never been racist. We all have a little bit of stereotypical bias within us. And for people who look different from us, that's there. And it's there for evolutionary purposes. But when you have your side of your brain that's like, okay, there's the side where you are trying to survive, and maybe you have had a history and had a traumatic event with a gang. And so if you see a bunch of kids with the same colored t-shirt on, you think, oh my God, it's a gang. And that's the evolutionary brain kicking in. And you're like, oh my God, it's a gang. Oh my God, it's a gang. I need to get out of here. Or, racism is an example of that. In some people, not everyone. Some people are just terrible human beings. Need to throw that out there. But I'm saying that there are some aspects of racism where people have had poor experiences and they don't allow the rational side to kick in and go, wait, that's not a gang. They have on jerseys. That's a soccer team. Or maybe it just has the school on the front of the t-shirt, but they just see a bunch of red shirts and think, oh my God, it's a gang. They're listening to hip hop music. They're going to get me. That's where the rational side isn't kicking in. And go, oh God, they're just a bunch of kids. And they went and played soccer and now they're listening to music and they're having a nice Saturday. So we all have a bit of that bias anyway. And so racism is one of the isms that, where and it's much more nuanced than this. I'm not downplaying it to just this one thing. And I want that clear because some people are just absolutely terrible human beings. So let's be honest here. They're just terrible human beings. And it's not trauma-based for a lot of that racism. I'm just giving an example. So for those individuals who have trauma-based situations like that, where they've not learned to shut off that, oh my God, and then it goes all into the conspiracy theory mode. Those people are easy to control. They may not have been inherently evil and wanting to go around killing people. But when that side of your brain is allowed to go unregulated and you don't deal with the things like that, it's very easy for somebody like Donald Trump to manipulate you in thinking that all brown people are going to kill you. or black people are going to kill you because you might have had a single solitary incident where you saw something that made you uncomfortable. And so that allows you to delve into a bit of that. That's a connection to something that's there, that's trauma-based. And that's meant to induce fear in you to get you to do what he wants you to do. And that's where education and critical thinking kind of should kick in and help with that. But it doesn't, because we don't teach critical thinking in the U.S. We don't. Coming former high school teacher, we don't teach critical. I tried to, but you have to start that young. You have to start it really young. And having even daily practices with people, having them, what are you observing? What's a question you have about that? What do you think the answer is? How do you figure out what the answer is? How do you know if it's the right answer? What if it's not? What do you do? What kind of conclusion do you draw from that? Getting people to just think that way is exceedingly difficult because of the different biases they have. And there's comfort in your biases. All right, checking up on the chat. Purple Rhymes with Orange says, I did a social experiment. When I was 20, I decided to give everyone a full and truthful answer to every question asked. The result was that after 3 months, everyone avoided talking to me. Hey, Kitty, it's all right. We're all good, and we're just hanging out here. We've been just talking about the Milgram Experiment, the Stanford Prison Experiment. I'm not going to spend too much time on, but I'm going to talk a bit about cognitive biases here in a second. Fair enough, Purple, except on the internet. People, if you tell people the brutal truth sometimes, and you can tell the truth without being brutal, by the way. You can be kind in your truth telling. You don't have to be, oh my God, that shirt makes you look like a bunch of pigs were shoved into a potato sack and tied a rope around a few spots. You could just say, if somebody asks you, just, how do I look in this? You might, you know what, I think another color that'd be better on you is this. That one doesn't quite bring out your eyes so much. You can be kind in truth telling. So, there you go. Yeah, the U.S. has been ignoring many of its checks and balances. They do have, and see where it is getting them. No accountability breeds excess. That's true, Nether. Never again. Yes, that is what they will hear. Obedience has been beating literally and verbally for decades. Beating me didn't help. I just ran to the other coast for a long time. Didn't outrun bigotry. Nope. Has been beaten into them. Yes. I got it. And that's from Never Again. Man, no need to fear the red shirts. They'll be dead by the first commercial break. Like that Star Trek thing. Right, and you're right, RB. Racism is not instinctive. Racism is a learned behavior. But there are biases there that help protect you with survival. For instance, one of the things is clustering illusion, being able to see patterns in things. This is why pareidolia is so hilarious to us, because we can see faces in things. It allows us to be able to recognize whether or not there's a predator after us or not. So, like out in the Serengeti, if you see some rustling, grass, and you kind of see something that looks like a lion's mane, or something that looks like a giant cat, your eyes, our brains, working with our eyes, are trained to look for patterns. And so that's a survival thing. So the bias is there, but racism in itself is not instinctive. It's not. It is learned. It is a learned thing. You are correct there, RB. So, yeah, and the Stanford Prison Experiment was brutal, and it does show how evil humans can be. And, Jeff brought up earlier that, and there is a debate. There's still a debate on the scientific quality of it. But honestly, that's most psychology-based experiments, because they're hard to replicate. Who's going to replicate the Stanford Prison Experiment? They can't. They can't replicate it because it's not ethical. There's a whole division of the American Psychology Association that they developed a criteria on testing on humans based on that experiment, because there were very real abusive things happening. And it wasn't ethical at all. And so psychological experiments, there is a huge criteria list that you have to check off when you're going down the list, and it has to be approved. So anything like the Stanford prison experiment, again, that's not going to happen. But what they do, they can go in and look at current prisons and kind of go across between the two and see how they're connected together and see if there's any similarities. So I'm trying to learn that now, and that was Kitty who brought that up. Never Again says, I'm trying to learn that now, Mel. It's difficult sometimes. One has no built-in filter. Old dogs, new tricks. Honesty without put-downs. Yes, it is hard. It is hard to do that sometimes. Oh, gosh. And that's true, too, Purple Rhymes with Orange. More than people ask a lot of questions they don't want answers to. When they ask, how are you? They don't want to know if you aren't doing great. I don't know. I'm the kind of person, if you're not doing great, that's okay. And if you need a friend, you can talk to me. That's how I am. So going back a bit to Milgram, I'm prepping for the hurricane headed for Florida. Bunker down, everyone. Do you have lots of toilet paper, milk, and bread? Because that's what we would be doing if it was tornado weather. Do we have bread, milk, and eggs and toilet paper? If not, it's going to be sold out soon at the local grocery store. All right. Back to Milgram, though. Milgram had 18 variations of his study. And so he noticed that change of location of building matters. More prestigious buildings, means the obedience increases. Uniform. Clothing matters. Lab coats increase qualification and obedience. So if you're wanting somebody to shift their perception of you, particularly if you're having issues, or, it's like when you go to an interview, you want to exude a particular look. So how you dress and how you present yourself is extremely important because of the fact that other people pick up on that. So for instance, if you have a lab coat and you're doing an experiment, that increases qualification and obedience. This is why we see with freaking goop in places like that. Oh, here's a doctor who's saying how great my supplements are and that you should eat better because, that might help you in your autoimmune disease. The guy's a cardiologist. And he believes in woo and has his own clinic where you can go and get flushed out, and that's somehow supposed to help you. And, but the presuming authority is huge in how people are receptive to what you have to say. If you have 2 teachers, so 2 of the test subjects instead of 1, more teachers means responsibility is shared. So if you have a couple of people, this is where we get into bandwagon bias, guys, right? This is where we get into a little bit of bandwagon bias. If you have a couple of people who are there and they're part of it and they're like asking the questions, then responsibility is shared between the 2 of you. It's not so if it's just you, there's pressure. But if there's 2 of you there, well, this person's doing it, I can too. So there's also peer pressure from teachers. So those who refuse to obey drop the electrical shock. So essentially, if there's 2 teachers there, and one's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do this. This is terrible. And this is awful. Then that other teacher would be like, you know what? They're kind of right. I don't want to do this either. But that's if you did. And now if you have those 2 there and they're both banding together saying this is not okay, it's where we get protests, right? This is more people who speak about a thing saying something's not okay, the more likely other people are going to speak out about it. And so that's a bit of the bandwagon bias there. And then if you don't have an experimenter in the room, obedience drops. So if nobody's there to pass the blame to, pass the buck to, obedience drops. So you have to have an authority type of figure directing people. And the more people who support what you're saying, the more others are going to support what you say. This is why we have the anti-vaxxer problem. you have somebody, an authority figure, Andrew Wakefield, vaccines cause autism 9,000 years ago now, or, what is it? Almost 15 years ago that he did this study. He had the single authority figure with the lab coat who has been readily debunked and proven to be wrong, even admitted he falsified data. People will still believe that because he's playing into their fears, their particular cognitive biases. They want to hear that they're doing what they can to protect their kids, and the fact that these well-learned doctors, these other doctors, well, they're wrong. They're just wrong. They're just wrong. They aren't really looking out for me like I am with my kid, and I'm going to know better than they are. And so Andrew Wakefield plays into that and saying, hey, we know you don't have a medical degree, but there's nothing that's going to compare to a mother who's going to know exactly what they need for their kids. And that gives you a sense of, oh, wow, yeah, I should know. I'm way better than these medical doctors. And that plays into your ego. So you can be manipulated by people utilizing this sort of thing against you. And one thing that I found particularly interesting with the Milgram experiment, and these are quotes from there. I'll just read this really quickly and we'll just kind of move on. It's been an hour. Milgram basically said, I set up a simple experiment at Yale University to test how much pain an ordinary citizen would inflict on another person simply because he was ordered to by an experimental scientist. Stark authority was pitted against the subjects, the participants' strongest moral imperatives against hurting others, and with the subjects' participants' ears ringing with the screams of the victims, because they could hear the screams of the victims, guys, by the way. They could hear them screaming. Authority won more often than not. Now, the extreme willingness of adults to go to almost any lengths on the command of an authority constitutes the chief finding of the study and the fact most urgently demanding explanation. People will and can do horrible things if there's an authority figure telling them it's okay. Trump supporters, looking at you. Trump is telling you it's okay to go out and hurt other people. Trump's telling you it's okay to do these things. And you know it's not. You know it's not. Classic Milgram Experiment stuff here, guys. So, just picking that up. Man, catching up on the chat really quick. Oh, goodness. You guys are silly in the chat. A clipboard and a busy walk will get you into the lots of places with no questions asked. Yes. I saw something that was hilarious. You could run down the street with a superhero cape in your underwear and go, this is for science, and people will believe you. I have a funny anecdotal. It actually works, guys. The for science thing actually works. When I taught at high school, I had I'm like 5'6", 5'5", 5'6". We're a medium large now. I used to wear a small medium when I was teaching in high school, but the Rona guys, the past couple years have not been kind to me, and I've not been exercising like I need to. I'm hoping to change that. I just have to get in the mental state to focus on my health like that. But they were huge football players, and so I wanted to exert a bit of authority because, they thought, oh, this little redhead person, whatever, I won't do what she says. So I did a social experiment of my own. And I was like, all right, I told all of my students that I was a former cage fighter. I did. I set it all up. I dropped a little story, little nuggets here and there. And I wanted them to think that I could defend myself if I needed to, because football players can be intimidating, and they're pretty big high school kids. They're not completely rational. And that's normal. That's not anything that's wrong with high schoolers. That's just a stage of development. So I convinced them all of my classes. It was like, that was the motivation, was to get people to go, oh, wow, she knows how to protect herself. You better not mess with her. And they knew I was already smart. And at the time I was working out a lot. And so I dropped that little story, and it started to spread like wildfire because I was a new teacher at the school. I was a brand new t-shirt at the school, and not t-shirt. I saw t-shirt. I was a brand new teacher at the school. I saw your t-shirt idea, by the way. I'll catch up in a second. Hey, Greg, Lyra, what's going on? So I passed that story around. And so and sometimes the kids would see me at the gym working out, and they'll be like, yeah, she does work out. Yeah, And so there's these little bits of evidence, little things that were thrown in to perpetuate this particular, this outright lie I was telling, just for my own amusement. And I'm like, okay. And it was my way of having fun. It was I felt a harmless lie. So yes, ScientistMel has lied before to a bunch of high schoolers about me being a former cage fighter. But anyway, so I went to London for the fall break, and I had told the students, and I was planning on doing something. Like, I had some friends there. I'm like, oh, I want to put on this perception that I'm a former cage fighter. And I said, well, I'm going to go to London. I'm going to fight this person I could never beat before. And people were like, oh, wow. He was like, I know, I just could never beat her. And she was always so great. She's a super tall lady. And I knew somebody who was like that, really tall, almost 6 feet tall woman, gorgeous lady. I was like, I'm gonna try to fight her again, guys. I'm like, oh, is ESPN gonna be? I'm like, no, it's not that kind of fight. Probably go and have a couple rounds, and then go to a pub afterwards. It'll be a lot of fun. And I'm like, but I'm gonna try to beat her. And so all of my students were like rooting for me, like, you gotta beat her. What happens if you die? Is anybody gonna tell us? And so I perpetuated this, and I'm like going on, with that. And so I stayed with a friend of mine, and if you're not familiar with some of the flats in London, they're small. And so I'm used to having more space to walk around. So I'm like walking around in the evening when like all the lights were out because it was late at night. I was going to get me some tea or something. I banged my legs on a coffee, like a little end table. So I had bruises on my shins. And so when I got back from my trip, I wore a dress. And you could see the bruises on my shins. And they look pretty bad because I had run into the same thing a couple of times. Just wasn't used to the small amount of space. And so then when I got back, I'm just walking around with my dress on, and my students, one of them looked at me and was like, how did you get those bruises on your legs? I'm like, well, that's where I kicked her in the neck. And then I just kept walking. And I just kept lecturing. And that spread like wildfire. And it was just, at one point we were having parent-teacher, and this is where I'm getting to for science. It works. One point in time we were having parent-teacher conferences. And a mom and a dad, their child wasn't in the room. A mom and a dad mentioned, it's like, she says you're a former cage fighter. She just loves your class. She says that you used to cage fight. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to tell the truth here because these are parents. And so I looked at her, and I really was curious to see how far it would go. So it was a bit of a discovery experiment. So it's not a full-on lie there. So I told the parents, I said, I wanted to do a discovery experiment, a social experiment, to see how far a rumor could go, which is the truth. There's truth to that. And the kids loved it so much, I didn't have the heart to tell them it wasn't true, which is also true. They freaking loved that. So, and it lasted for a couple of years. The previous students would tell the other students, don't mess with Miss Williams. I've just outed. Okay. She's a former cage fighter. Anyway, she's a former cage fighter. How do we know? There's all this proof. And then they would go through and talk about, she works out, seen her at the gym. She went to London. She had bruises on her legs. Guys, for real, she's a real deal. So, so it worked. And at the end of one of the years, there was a couple of football players had a fight in my classroom. And I made like a beeline, just ran straight to the back of the classroom. And I pulled them apart. They just stopped swinging. I pulled them apart. I took him out in the hallway. I was like, how dare you fight in my classroom? I teach tolerance here. What's wrong with you? And I called the administrators. They took him out. And I walked back in. And one of my students looked at me and goes, they were just like, oh, my God. And they were just like, and I said, what's wrong? She's like, I thought you were going to do like kung fu or karate on them. I said, it wasn't necessary this time. And then I just kept walking. But yes, I convinced my students, all of my classes, that I was a former cage fighter. It was fun. It was a great example of how an authority figure can influence pretty easily people who see them as that. And as well as the fact that, authority figures can get away with some things. So I thought you would get a kick out of that particular story. Oh my goodness. Yep. I'm catching up. Yep, Sinister Porpoise. The Nazi prison guards who were only following orders is what he was thinking of with the experiment or one thing. And same thing with the prison guards, yeah. So the Stanford prison experiment kind of reinforces that idea. Ox PMA, new t-shirt idea. I was with ScientistMel when Trump got fired. I need to like make some t-shirts like that. That'd be cool. Let's see. Catching up. My dinosaur teacher told me dinosaurs went extinct and weren't reptiles. They're clearly liars. Sinister Porpoise. Oh my goodness. You guys are funny. Anyone see the after school special The Wave? I haven't, Sinister Porpoise. Nether 6, my biology teacher on Linnaean taxonomy. We know this isn't really correct, but I'm required to teach you this by law, so let's get it over with so I can teach you phylogenetics too. Oh my goodness. So yeah. Yep. Wow, ScientistMel used to be a professional cage fighter. No, I really wasn't. But that was a fun story of Mr. Unite for the children. How are you doing, by the way? Oh my goodness. So, really briefly, if you're not familiar with the Stanford prison experiment, you should totally check it out. So in 73, Professor Zimbardo wanted to investigate how readily people would conform to the roles of guard and prisoner in a role-playing exercise that simulated prison life. This was sparked from the reports of brutality among the guards in U.S. prisons. He wanted to see if it was due to the sadistic personalities of the guards. Was it dispositional or had more to do with the prison environment, situational? So, for example, prisoners and guards may have personalities making aggressive interactions inevitable. Prisoners lacking respect for law and guards being domineering. Now, alternatively, prisoners and guards may act hostile due to the rigid power structure environment in prisons. Now, if the prisons and guards behaved without aggression, this would support the personality hypothesis. Or if they behave the same way as people do in real prisons, this would support the environment explanation. So, this particular experiment is brought up before. It has complications with it. There are students, some of them were students of Zimbardo's, so it required, there was a bit of already authority type of figure. Oh, I need to do this, maybe I'll get extra credit kind of thing. You know what I mean? And so there are ethical concerns on how scientific this particular thing is. People don't do experiments like this anymore because it can be damaging psychologically to the people involved as well as physically abusive. So they don't do that. I do like this particular trailer though. So I do want to play this. If you've not seen this came out in 2015, the Stanford Prison Experiment. There's a website you can go to learn more about it, but I particularly liked this movie. So let's have a look. PTSD warning, folks, by the way. If you have PTSD, it might triggering here, or trauma-based. So, just heads up on that, content warning.
Would you rather be a guard or a prisoner?
I don't think I have the qualities to be a guard.
Prisoner.
Prisoner, I guess.
Prisoner. Sounds like it would be a little less work.
Prisoner.
Why's that?
Nobody likes guards.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This experiment will be an extension of my research into the effects prisons can have on human behavior.
You're going to be pleased to know that you all have been chosen to be the prison guards.
But under no circumstances whatsoever are you to physically assault the prisoners in any way. So remember, just as you were watching the prisoners, my graduate staff and I will be watching you.
All right, gentlemen, we gonna have ourselves a lot of fun.
Rule number 1, prisoners must remain silent.
This is an exercise period.
Okay, is it just me, or are these guys taking this thing a bit too seriously?
Why don't you give me 20 push-ups?
Look at this guy. Thinks he's John Wayne or something.
You address me as Mr. Correctional Officer.
This might be an interesting 2 weeks after all.
Why don't you make up your bunk, 8612?
I did, Mr. Correctional Officer.
Well, that's not what I see.
Hey, what are you doing? It's just me now!
What was that?
You just hit him. You're not supposed to hit him.
Should we step in?
No, let the guards figure it out. Let's see where it goes.
Good evening, gentlemen. How about we make this one a night to remember?
This is all real. They won't let you go. They won't let us leave.
Those are not prisoners. Those are not subjects. Those are boys, and you are harming them.
Wait! Let me out of here! I want out! I want out now! You thought you were gonna get some playtime in the yard, boy? Is that what you thought this was gonna be?
I had no idea it would turn out this way.
That's pretty rough, man. You know, super trigger warning for that. If you have any kind of anxiety or trauma related to abuse, prison stuff, don't watch that. But it goes through a bit of that, and it is a dramatization, so keep that in mind. There's a website where you can go and check out actual footage from it. But essentially, what it goes through is more than 70 applicants answered the ad that was placed and were given diagnostic interviews and personality tests to eliminate candidates with psychological problems, medical disabilities, or a history of crime or drug abuse. The study comprised of 24 male college students chosen from 75 volunteers who were paid $15 per day to take part in this experiment. Participants were randomly assigned to either the role of prisoner or guard in a simulated prison environment. There were 2 reserves and 1 dropped out, finally leaving 10 prisoners and 11 guards. The guards worked in sets of 3, being replaced after an 8-hour shift. And the prisoners were housed 3 to a room. There was also a solitary confinement cell for prisoners who misbehaved, and the prison simulation was kept as real life as possible. The environment was maintained to look like a prison, even down to the guards' clothing and schedule. So the thing that's pretty interesting here, I forgot to get rid of my little orange thing here. It's like, so prisoners. What they saw in behavior with prisoners that there were rumors of revolt and escape. They were punished physically and emotionally by doing push-ups, and they suffered emotional damage to a degree, but it wasn't permanent, fortunately. And the guards harassed prisoners. They punished and rewarded prisoners, and they fell into these roles easily. So the guards showed up, and they arrested the people from their home. They had mock trials, and they had them starting right away. They also had people who were released on parole, and the other prisoners were convinced that they were going to come back and save them. It got so dire. The entire thing was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it lasted less than a week because of how bad the behavior was and how the abuse was escalating. And so one of the things that we can take from this, with all of the ethical concerns and the data concerns and the potential biases there, regardless of the fact that they're Zimbardo students, people easily conform to the social roles they are expected to play. Again, authority, passing the buck to authority. This is also reinforced if the roles are strongly stereotyped as those of the prison guards. So the prison environment was an was important in generating the guards' brutality. None of the guards showed sadistic tendencies before the study. Now, findings support the situational environmental explanation of behavior rather than the dispositional personality one. Man, it's pretty nuts. So it's not all that surprising to me that the election is like this, given we do have a really big freaking problem with critical thinking. We have a problem with with racism and sexism. This is all there. So I'm catching up. And so this doesn't surprise me. Sinister Porpoise says, because of MMORPGs and technology, we can do more hard science-like experiments without those nasty ethical problems. World of Warcraft was used for an epidemiology study. Well, that's cool. Sinister Porpoise. I'm catching up. Nether says the WoW pandemic should have been a warning sign that people will start spreading an infection just to hurt others. Yeah. You know, why is this a surprise? I don't go to prison either. It will kill you or mess you up worse. Voice of experience. I'm sorry, never again. I hope you're all right. Oh my goodness. Nevada declared blue. Biden is at 290 now. He's just sitting there eating his ice cream and his aviators, isn't he, Ox PMA? He's like, this is a good day today. Man. And, yep, we need a leader and not a circus clown. Yep. Alrighty. So, we have the current political environment. So, where we see manipulation. Well, I've been talking about Trump supporters a lot. We've been talking about the prisons. We've been talking about societal roles. We've been talking about Nazi Germany. And we're seeing this now with white supremacists. I've talked about it in Goop, where we can see manipulation, where people are being manipulated to buy a thing. We have it in the form of advertising, freaking Facebook ads. I mean, Facebook is huge. They listen to everything you say, particularly if you have Messenger app on your phone. They can listen in to your conversations. And then they target advertise according to that. You know, and I've bought things that I've seen on Facebook ads because I liked them, you know, and so bias is there, taking that information on what you like and what you look at and just throw it in there. I don't know how I'd been talking about statistics with the election, and then all of a sudden on Twitter, I'm seeing lots of ads for gambling, and I'm going, yeah, no, I don't do that. So it's interesting. We've seen manipulation with COVID-19, when people willfully ignore facts because it makes them feel uncomfortable. So confirmation bias. You can have manipulation among your friends, narcissists, and something called triangulation. Narcissists use triangulation an awful lot. So recently, I'm going to touch on this briefly because this happened about a year ago. Person's not really around now. Kind of are a bit. Tried to stir up some problems and have stirred up some problems for other people, quite a few other people. So there was a person who, you know, and I have lots of hate videos about me, guys. There are people who just hate me, and you know what? That's all right. They don't have to be my friend. I have lots of friends, and that's okay. So, you know, and that's one of the things that you have to kind of take into consideration. If somebody's trying to manipulate you, what are they trying to do? So, I did a bit of pushback on somebody who exhibited some really poor behavior, and I started to question them. And they don't like the fact that I was questioning them because they were helping another person essentially harass me. And I thought, well, you say you're my friend. Why would you do this? And so I started to question them. Narcissists hate it when you question them. They hate it. because, you know, if you continuously ask them the questions and you show them the evidence, they're going to say, yeah, no, that's not real. They don't want to be questioned because they have to have a facade. They have to have a fake reality. And so this particular person, you know, I didn't consider them like a super close friend. I saw them as somebody that I had an acquaintance with. They could talk to about things sometimes, stuff that I was very vocal about with other people. And so I was like, okay. And so then I started to question them because they had made accusations about other friends. Oh, this person is this person that. I'm like, well, that's not my experience. And then they made accusations. Oh, well, my significant other fears for their life because of this person. I'm like, well, if that's the case, you should show me the evidence. Because if your significant other is that worried, why would you be okay with me being friends with them? So critical thinking, guys. Science has saved me quite a bit from falling prey to sorts of people like that. So I questioned and questioned and questioned. They don't like my questioning. And so even though they had no evidence of anything that they were saying, they generated a hate video meant to assassinate my character. And I have a copy of it. And I also, you know, it was posted on YouTube, and I was recorded illegally in a conversation that I had with that person and another who was present. And so they took that video, chopped it up into pieces, and spent about 2 weeks generating a character assassination piece that painted me as an abuser because I wanted evidence for what was being said. And they had already been talking to the person that they had made all these accusations of, like they're this abusive, stalker, horrible human being that my significant other fears for their life. Why are you having conversations with them if you're so worried about this? And so these are questions I was asking. And so they made this hit piece and then went through my Twitter followers and offered it. It was an unlisted video. And so it was a whisper smear campaign, and it blew up in their face pretty big because they didn't talk about it when it was happening. They did this not once but twice. So I filed with YouTube and had them remove it, and they did. And then I started to collect evidence. And then other people started coming to me with screenshots of what they were doing and what they were saying. And so I've kept it in a file. I almost got the police involved because they were trying to harass me through other people. Triangulation. He went to other YouTubers asking them to make videos about me and trying to convince them to make videos about me, but they would never make their video public. They would never make the video public, and they wouldn't put the entire conversation of the call that we had. They wouldn't post that either, even though they asked us not to record the call. That was brought up. Oh, are you guys recording this call right now? But he was, without consent. And that person is in a two-party state. And so they broke the law because I did pushback. So people who put their worth exclusively in this pretend facade to where they appear to be this educated person that's successful, and they're really not. They rely heavily on how others perceive them. So I just kept quiet about it. I'm like, what am I going to do? He's going to do whatever he wants. And went all the way through that. Well, it's come out recently that it did not only happen with me, but he's been manipulating other people. And some of these other people are now going, I'm very sorry that I helped him hurt you, Mel. And I appreciate that apology. Because I've been part of a triangulation scheme before too. And that's what they do. They go around and they poison other people to this perception of you, and they demonize you, and they put it all up like they're a victim and they're the one who has been this injured party and that's been hurt. And gosh, I was actually compared to a rapist by this person. And I have a video of where somebody is expressing everything that they had said, they had been told about me, and said that what I had done by asking him questions for evidence of his accusations was the same as rape. So I have that evidence too. So it's it's pretty interesting that people just dive headfirst into the Kool-Aid. But the video that was done, and I had a doctor of psychology watch it, and I had a lawyer watch it, and they said it was, in particular the psychologist said this was meant to stir up emotion in people. This was meant to be a call of action. It was malicious with ill intent, and he's lying. So I had professionals look at this video and have their opinions, their professional opinions about it. And so, yeah. So this person used all the right words. And there were people who suffered a little bit of emotional damage from that. It triggered their anxiety and their PTSD from watching this because the way that he presented it. And so I'm still spending some time talking to people who saw that video, and that's fine. And I don't mind talking to people about things if they need to. They come to me and ask me questions. I'm an open book, guys. I'll tell you. And so I spend some time talking to people, talking them down. And first thing I do, so if you saw that video, let me just say to you, I know it's been a year now, but I want to say to you, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry if that video caused any kind of anxiety attack, any kind of PTSD, anything like that. So I'm just going to say that now. And I've spent some time talking to people that were triggered by that video to where it put them into a panic attack. I am very sorry that happened to you. But please know, that's not me. If you're struggling and you need something, and if I can help you, I will do that. I will absolutely do that. And I want to thank the people who have come out publicly and apologized for believing that video. Now, mind you, those are the people who come out and apologize for that. I get it. I've been a victim of triangulation where a narcissist used me to hurt somebody else. And I came out just like you are and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I believed what they said to me because they were my friend and I thought I was helping them. And that's one way that people use manipulation. So I'm putting that out there. If you didn't actively go out of your way to hurt me so much and you saw that video and you're apologizing, hey, you know what, it's all right. But there are some people who dove headfirst into that and actively worked to help him harass me. Gonna be real hard to talk to you, I'll be honest. So when we're saying manipulation, I'm fully aware of stuff like that. I've had several people, well, actually quite a few people in my past, try to manipulate me, and then when I don't do what they say, they punish me. And that was punishment because I didn't fall in line and I asked questions. But that's always the MO of people like this. If you don't fall in line and do what they say, they punish you. Another example of that, Trump. We still don't have COVID-19 relief, do we? Did he not say he wouldn't give it until after the election? This punishment for him not being ahead. For him not being ahead. So, but, so why I'm bringing this up now, with what happened about a year ago. I mean, this person dropped it at holidays of all times and tried to ruin my holidays. You didn't. You tried to stress me out. Didn't work. And the people who matter see right through it. And they do. And the people who didn't see right through it, the ones who matter, have apologized. And I thank them for that. But people like this, they don't stop. So what do? How do you combat something like that? You don't give it attention. You don't give it any kind of emotional reaction. Often I see people like that. You treat them like a toddler having a tantrum in a candy store. Are you done now? Do you feel better? We're all looking at you. You just look like you pooped your pants. You kind of stink now, but not really bothered. So, so a true apology, true apology, How would you do a true apology for something like that if you were a person who did manipulating? You wouldn't really apologize. You would have the appearance of an apology, but you're not really sorry. I'm sorry I acted this particular way, but I still feel this way, and I feel this way, and you still perpetuate your lies. That's not an apology. So see through that manipulation too. But there you go. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And no, I hadn't really talked about it because it's not worth it. People who watch that and believe that kind of stuff, if the people who matter and the people who watch me and listen to what I say and spend 5 minutes with me, they know that's not me. So it's just like water on a duck's back, man. It just rolls right off. So make your hate videos. All those people make those hate videos. Some people won't even say my name anymore because they know it doesn't work. So that person. I'm called that person. That person. Okay, I'm that person. Sure. Whatever, man. So it's just, whatever. It's cool. It's cool. But if somebody gets creepy and weird, man, authorities do get involved. So I have my little evidence file on the various weirdos and the creeps and the stalkers that I have. I have one serious stalker, and I have a file on him. Already filed a police report. I got a 20-page document of evidence. That's how you do it, guys. Document. So, moving on. I'm going to catch up on the chat, and then we're going to wrap it up. Never Again says, hey, I'm about to turn 62 and I didn't expect to see 18. I'm pretty good for an old woman. Thanks. Awesome. Cheers to my coffee to you, Never Again. Happy early birthday. Oh my goodness. I'm catching up. I'm trying. I use ad blocker on my PC. I don't see a lot of those ads. On the other hand, I get a lot of Linux and computer ads. A sinister porpoise, perhaps. And don't send me a link. Grin says Never Again. Oh, it's not there anymore. YouTube took it down both times. The internet never forgets, guys. They didn't take it down. YouTube did. I have all the emails for that because it's illegal video of me. So it's just whatever. Selection bias. Sometimes I forget not everyone is a huge nerd. It's a sinister porpoise. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, narcissists tend to have the same problems over and over and over again. They tend to not have the same friends. They keep losing friends. And then they get upset when they have criticism. They can't possibly have anybody say anything ugly about them because then you get punished. And you get punished ruthlessly. And it's not just them. They'll actually have other people punish you too. That's the triangulation. And they'll convince other people to go after you as well. Which is always interesting, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Catching up. We're getting our second stimulus check eventually. Yes! It's in the mail, probably. That they sabotaged, right? Mel has compassion, and I admire that. Thank you, Never Again. I appreciate that. I try to. I try to do what I ask myself, what would Mr. Rogers do? And I can't always do what Mr. Rogers would do sometimes. So I just walk away. It's like, what would Mr. Rogers do? I need a t-shirt that says that. Have you asked yourself, what would Mr. Rogers do? If you don't know Mr. Rogers, look him up. He's amazing. Evidence files, good idea. Yes, it is. I've also stored them on another server with a nonprofit organization who works in that sort of thing too. So they have it as well. Use your noggin, guys. Somebody messing with you? Science the shit out of it. Science the shit out of it. Evidence. Keep excellent records. Document it. Write it all down. Come to it from an analytical mind standpoint. and just put it all together and take breaks. If you're getting emotionally exhausted from doing that sort of thing, set a schedule for yourself between certain periods of the day. This time to this time, this is the only time I'm going to give it attention. And that's something I had to learn when I was actively being harassed by an online stalker all the time. My phone was just notifications. And then other people who were meaning well were collecting data as well and sending it to me and collecting evidence. And my phone was just going off all the time. So I couldn't function because, and it's not, so it's like all these people that are wonderful humans that are trying to help you. Sometimes that's not so great for your mental health when they're sending you all these horrible things this awful person is saying. But you need that evidence to build a case. So that's why I'm plugging and checking your messages between certain times of the day. You can deal with it all at one time rather than spread out throughout the day and just wreck your whole day. So, pro tip there on that. If you have a stalker, let me know. I'll help you and let you know what I do. So, yes. Check the drive. Good pick to end on. Okay, I will check it. Mr. Rogers would vote for Joe Biden. I think so. Yep. Okay. All right. So I will check the drive here in a second. I kind of want to talk a bit about quickly. And thank you guys for being here, by the way. You're really awesome. And I'm glad you're here doing science with me on Saturday mornings. These are these are 20 different cognitive biases. I have a whole episode where I get into detail about each of these. But the ones that we need to take particularly pay attention to. We have blind spot bias. So these are all the different biases that people can use against you and get you to do what they want you to do. That's how manipulation works. You have the bandwagon effect. The more people who believe a thing, the more likely it's perceived as true. So, Trump supporters, looking at you. Clustering illusion. We tend to look for patterns in things. I mentioned that before, so even if there's no things there. So that's where we get into a problem of correlation does not mean causation. And so scientists have to constantly fight this innate ability for us to see patterns in things with our eyes. Why do we have the constellations? People looking for patterns in things. Why is pareidolia funny? Because we're looking at we see faces in buildings and faces on stuff. So our mind is constantly trying to rationalize stuff and find patterns in them. Confirmation bias. That's huge. You will cherry pick and look for things that make you feel better about yourself and confirm, that you're right about a thing. So it's not that surprising that racist people are being outwardly racist, because now not only do they have permission from president in the highest office, but they also have, confirmation bias. They have him telling him it's okay. And he's like, well, the president did this and didn't go to jail. President did this and didn't go to jail. Clearly, all these people are lying, clustering illusion. And then you end up with conspiracy theories. Overconfidence is a big thing. People tend to think that they're better at a thing than they actually are, or that they know more about a thing than they actually are. And so Trump plays into a lot of these biases here. And he's able to manipulate people because it feels good to also be part of a group. This is my group. So people often treat politics like it's sports. You have your Republicans that are the elephants, and you have your Democrats that are the donkeys. And then, and so you have mascots. We even have freaking mascots. So it's like, it's treated like it's often treated like it's a sport. Gotta vote for my team. Well, what if your team is nothing but a bunch of wife beaters? Well, it doesn't matter. That's always my team. And that's kind of where we get into conservatism bias. We've always done it this way. Why should we change it? Make America great again. You remember when America was great back in the day? We didn't have all that unemployment. Well, we also had corporate taxes. We had a huge corporate tax. We taxed the wealthy. We actually started to develop socialism programs, but they don't talk about that. They talk about it in the way of looking back with rose-colored glasses when sexism was completely allowed, and so is racism, the Jim Crow laws. So we've always done it this way. Therefore, this is the correct way. So Trump plays into a lot of these biases to get people to do what he wants them to do. ostrich effect. It's fake news. Don't look at it. It makes you feel bad. COVID-19, if I bury my head in the sand and I don't look at it, because evidence that, negative news makes you feel awful. So you put your face in, you stick your whole head in the sand to hide from it. So that's, again, I'm only going to watch news that makes me feel better. Fake news. All of these cognitive biases he's been eliciting for a while, because that's how he's been successful. He's able to use this to manipulate people to get what he wants. He doesn't pay his bills. He's gone bankrupt several times, 6 or 7 times. His businesses have. Well, I've never personally been bankrupt. No, but he bankrupts other businesses. He doesn't pay his bills. He doesn't pay his taxes. And he's revered for that. And it's because he uses all of these different biases as well manipulation tactics to get that happening. Stereotyping. That's huge. Stereotyping has some evolutionary advantage where, I talk about somebody had, you have past experience, and it's negative, you don't want that to happen again. But when it runs rampant, and you don't keep your bias in check, you get all the isms, right? Ableism, ageism, sexism, racism, all of those they come from stereotyping that's gone completely out of control. We all have bias, guys, but that doesn't make us bad people. But when we don't keep it in check, other people can use them against us. And that's exactly what Trump does, and a lot of manipulative people do. They try to use your biases against you. And I already talked about quite a bit of that. So, so people feel comfortable. So about confirmation bias, really quickly. People feel comfortable in being part of a group of individuals. Now, these belief systems help them in their survival instinct. So people ignore facts that contradict their belief system as it threatens that survival instinct. Now, this is why we see people stand firm in their own belief systems and band together with others who think like they do. It alleviates fear associated with new information that challenges their core beliefs. And this isn't just confirmation bias. This also is linked with lots of other biases. So in order to overcome that, you have to convince the person you are presenting new info to that you're not a threat to them or their beliefs. Really kind of impossible to do that right now in America, isn't it? Because anybody who's peacefully protesting has been targeted as a problem and worthy of being killed, right? So it's hard to even peacefully protest because it's gotten to a lethal amount of awful. And this bias has been allowed to run rampant. So confirmation bias is largely why we have people quick to believe false information on the internet. We know false information spreads a lot faster than correct information. So this in turn fuels that propaganda machine. So example, Russia, when they interfered with the other election. I'm gonna check on the chat really quick. I'm checking. Trying to see if you guys have any questions. I'm trying to see. Dunning-Kruger effect. Yep, that's true. The overconfidence. That's another way to call it. Kitty says, Mel, my guys are doing my hair today. Yay for Pampered. Yay! Survivorship bias is a fun one. Yes. Never Again says, expect another ASMR leaf blowing video coming soon to a channel up here. Hello, Chris. How are you doing? Chris, I think is L00812334. What's going on? Mel, that S word is one of my triggers for real. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I'm catching up. Okay. Alrighty. So let's talk about the different tactics, and then I'm going to have a look at the picture Peter sent me, and then go, hi, Organized Chaos, how you doing? Okay, so these are the different ways that people can manipulate you. gaslighting, projection, impossible arguments, home court advantage, misrepresenting your thoughts, moving goalposts, manipulation of facts, overwhelmed with facts, overwhelmed with red tape, smear campaigns. I've had those before. That's nice. Negative surprises, guilt baiting, aggressive jab jokes, shaming, and victimhood. These are all tactics that are used to get you to do what they want you to do. Home court advantage. You might see people say, hey, you can come on my channel and do all of these things, but it's their channel. And so they can behave a certain way in their, so that's kind of what a home court advantage is. So I'm always leery about which channels I go on because home court advantage one, but if they're an awful person, what is their motive here? Impossible arguments, where the arguments are circular. They're just endless circle. And you just get exhausted and you want it to be over. So you'll do what they say in order to stop it. Projection. They will always accuse you of things that they are doing. And you're like, no. Anyway, misrepresenting your thoughts. They'll sit there and say, well, you obviously want this. They'll put motives on you and misrepresent what you're thinking based on usually what they're thinking. And so this idea is people who manipulate will often accuse other people of thinking what they think. So there's a bit of projection there. And then they'll misrepresent what it is you're actually thinking. And they'll try to convince you that you're a bad person because you're just, you're obviously thinking this. And you're like, no. And so you start to question yourself. Gaslighting. That came from a movie. That term came from a movie. If you're not familiar with gaslighting, it's somebody using tactics to try to convince you that something's wrong with you. And whether it's your mental health or that you're sick or, you're the problem kind of thing. So gaslighting, what that means and where that term comes from is that film. It was during the time before they had electricity. They had to use gas lights in the house. And so every day, the husband would turn down the gas a little bit to where the lights would get dimmer. And so the wife would wake up, she'd walk around. And what he was trying to do was drive her insane. And so he would just say, no, the lights aren't dimmer. And every day he would do that a bit more. And so she started to think she was losing her mind because he would sit there going, there's something wrong with you. And so that's essentially what gaslighting is for them to sit there and accuse you of something, and saying that there's something wrong with you. And they'll do different things in order to perpetuate that idea. And a lot of these other tactics kind of play along with that because it has you questioning your own sanity. And so a lot of these are kind of interconnected with the gaslighting. Smear campaigns. Those are fun. And it's to get you to either respond. What I find is with smear campaigns, they try to force you into a response, or they try to assassinate your character or hurt your credibility. Basically, it's meant to ruin you. And so, but like I said, the people who matter are not going to listen to it. And so it's really important to stay kind of steadfast and understand that people will expose themselves over time as being awful human beings, like the one that's popped up again who's hurt other people. There's always going to be decimation everywhere, a person like this. There's always going to be a pattern. They're always going to behave the same way. And there will always be people who are hurt in the wake of that. It's just interesting because I don't often get to see it. And, but when it happens on the internet, people talk and people post their evidence, and then there it is. So you have manipulation of facts. Again, part of the smear campaign, chopping up a thing to make it look like that they're a victim, the victimhood. The victimhood thing there. Yes, they are always the victim. It's never their fault. They're always the victim every single time, and they will never take responsibility. Not really. Sometimes they'll even have a perception that they're taking some responsibility in order to establish a little bit of credibility. But when you find out how awful they actually are, and enough of that gets around, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. They also shame. They shame people. How dare you say that about me? How dare you behave this way? That's not me. And so they'll shame people and make them feel bad. And then the guilt baiting comes along. Sometimes they'll overwhelm you with facts and they'll just point out all of these things, even if they're irrelevant. They'll just be pulling stuff up and say, well, you did this, therefore this happened. You did this, therefore this happened. And so they'll use that for that thing. And they'll move goalposts. It doesn't matter what you do. They're not going to be satisfied. And so they're going to make you continue to do things and even more things in order to satisfy them. And then they'll overwhelm you with red tape. You're going to have to go through and jump through this, like the freaking insurance companies who ignore, and automatically dismiss the original claim. You got to keep pushing and get through all this red tape, and they're hoping you'll quit. And so we can see manipulation in lots of facets in our culture, whether it's on a corporate level, our friends, government, any of these things. And so it's pretty scary. I kind of wanted to point out all those, and I have gotten into detail about each of those cognitive biases. I have lots of sources, guys. Lots of freaking sources. There's so much information available on the internet. Psychology Today, prisonerexperience.org. You can go there for and simply psychology.org/Zimbardo. They also talk about the Milgram Experiment. Cognitive biases in Business Insider actually has a really good graphic on cognitive biases. You can, I think there's also mindtools.com. They have an article on avoiding psychological bias and what you got to do. You can also go on tolerance.org, professional development, test yourself for hidden bias. So you can kind of check out and see what your tendencies are. Now, again, that doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that, you got bias and you got to handle it. That's all. Just, don't let it run. Don't let it go unchecked. All right. Peter said there's something. Let me show this picture. In light of the brand new things, let me pull this up so you guys can have a look. I might have to make a t-shirt for this. Here you guys. You're fired. Donald Trump. Oh my goodness. You're fired, Donald Trump. Nobody's sad. Well, maybe some people are sad because they're not allowed to be racist, openly racist anymore, and hurt others. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Somebody should hey, I need to talk to Hannibal from Hannibal and Monty Show. By the way, check them out. They're great. I've been on there a few times, and sometimes I do voice acting for them, for their little mascot, the little poop. That's me. Shh. Anyway. So check out their stuff. I need to ask him to do like a remix of Trump saying you're fired, but have him on there over and over again, firing himself. That'd be great, because he kind of did, didn't he? Hello, Exabyss on Periscope. How you doing? Goodness. I'm catching up on the chat. Gaslighting does suck. Organized chaos. It's terrible. Gaslighting is on the list. Oh, goodness. How's the Nina? We got the doggo cam. She's doing all right, guys. She's doing all right. She's just sitting here being the doggo. The little doggo that she is. So enjoy a little picture of Nina being blissfully unaware of the election. Oh my goodness. Yay! So yeah, I think I might make stickers here, guys. And you too can get stickers. And then what I'll do is I'll probably donate the proceeds to something like Planned Parenthood or Black Lives Matter or something like that. Is that something y'all be interested in? And then just donate the proceeds, because I do that with my store on ScientistMel.com/shop. So let's have a look at the shop commercial. Okay. There's lots of stuff there. I have a t-shirt that says, and you can get a hat that says, "Would you just shut up, man?" Joe Biden. And all those proceeds go to Black Lives Matter. I don't have it's not like a huge store or anything, and I'm not generating a whole lot of profit from it, but it's there. It's there if people want some sciencey clothes, and if you want some sciencey merch, and sometimes little cheeky merch, that goes to good causes. You can check that out there. I will be expanding more designs because I haven't been able to lately because they only allow a certain amount each time due to the pandemic. But you too can check that out. ScientistMel. It was supposed to do ScientistMel.com. Smell.com. So this is what my website looks like, if you're curious. I really need somebody to reorganize it for me. And I was having somebody do that, but their computer crashed. So if there's anybody, I'm looking at you, Sinister Porpoise, who wants to help me reorganize my site. It's WordPress based. I will pay. I will pay to have somebody help me. So if somebody is in need of some extra funds and is good with the SEO stuff and all of that, message me on Twitter. You can message me through my website. I'm looking to, throw some cash over. Somebody reorganize my site for me. We can negotiate how much and that sort of thing. I have a day job, so I still get paid with that. I've been asking, telling my patrons they don't have to continue to support me if they don't have to support me if they need that money for something else. And I've got memory. I think 16 gigs of memory are coming to me. So yes, but day jobs, I remember this. So yes, I know Sinister Porpoise does things with the computers and stuff. But if you're good at organizing websites or anything, you know what? Message me and I'll throw some cash at you. Because I really need to reorganize this, particularly the shop, because it's set up like a blog kind of thing, and I don't know how nice that is. I'm very terrible at this, guys. But you can check out the shop as well. I have Pride is non-binary. Well, science is non-binary unless it's computer. But we also have merch for Peter's channel. Peter going to go for it. All lives don't matter until Black Lives Matter. So you can check that out. All the proceeds go to Black Lives Matter. Got t-shirt and little hats that say, "Would you just shut up, man? Biden 2020. And, mug. We got little gaiters. These are really good. If you have a mask on underneath it. Pride clothing. All kinds of stuff. So, got fun what a scientist looks like. Some girl power things, vaccines versus viruses. So there's that data though. So there's lots of fun things here. Toss a coin to your teacher. So holidays are coming up. If you go to the block buy section, all of those proceeds go to charities. And I have the list of charities there that you can check out. Some of it's snarky little stuff meant to poke fun at people who have been ugly to me on the internet. No, I'm not taking those down. So, but it's there for you. So do check that out. I'm going to check the chat one more time. And then I'm going to sign off because you guys have been absolutely amazing. And I'm really, really glad you've been here hanging out with me. And check the chat one more time. Your dog votes for more dog food. She has been really picky. She was sick, but she's feeling better. She's eating more now. So that's really good. And her eye, tried to see if we could get her eye fixed, and we can't. It's permanent damage, so that's okay. We just want to make certain we keep the inflammation down, and, she's 7. She's still sweet. I'm sending Mel the movie now. I'll ask her to send you the link. She'll have it in about an hour. Okay. I don't know which movie you mean, Peter. Just message me on Twitter in case I missed it. Okay. All right. I think I'm just about caught up. Caught up on the chat. But okay, so I have to go now. ScientistMel, keep dropping science, and I will. But I'm going to read some Mr. Rogers before we go, because we need to. We should all. And I like the section. We are all neighbors. Let's see. I already read that one. I gotta find one I didn't read yet. All right. Okay. This is The World According to Mr. Rogers from the section We Are All Neighbors. Whether we're a preschooler or a young teen, a graduating college senior or a retired person, we human beings all want to know that we're acceptable, that our being alive somehow makes a difference in the lives of others. So acknowledge somebody today and that how they kind of how they help you. That's one thing that you can do, particularly with people who suffer from various forms of mental illness, whether it's anxiety, depression, anxiety lies, and so does depression. So even if there's somebody who's pretty low, send them a message today and say, you know what, I really like you, and give them a reason why. You're really awesome. I'm glad I have you in my life, and give them the reason, not just saying that. Back it up. So I'll read that again. Whether we're a preschooler or a young teen, a graduating college senior, or a retired person, we human beings all want to know that we're acceptable, that our being alive somehow makes a difference in the lives of others. Is it a positive difference? So let them know. So that's Mr. Rogers. One more doggo cam, and then we will sign off. There we go. Can you say bye, Neen? Little Nina? Nina the science doggo. She thinks you guys are great. She wants you to know she's happy about the Biden election, I guess, if that's possible. All right, Neen. All right. So thank you again, guys, for being here. And I'm going to say, you always make each day special for me. You know how? By just your being you. I will see you. I believe we're having an episode of This Week in BS tomorrow. I believe that will be... I think it's going to be... It's either going to be 6... I think it's going to be 8 p.m. Central. It will be 8 p.m. Central with Nervardia. No idea what we're going to talk about yet, but it should be pretty cool. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. Thank you for being here. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out my shop if you want to. Any comments you have, drop them here. Send them to me on Twitter. You can even email me through my website. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys later. Yay! AP called the election. Yay! We're moving in the right direction. Let's keep going that way. Bye!